do Neil Young, of course. There is a town in North Ontario. Didn't he go to school over here? Anyway, like just all that stuff. So I did that for years. But my favorite to do was Johnny Cash. I love doing a Johnny Cash impression, but my voice got hurt. But you know what? Because you're such a great crowd, I'm gonna go and hurt myself for you all, for your benefit. I go to the bar to have a little fun. It's great to hear Folsom being so well song. My birthday songs, I still miss someone. When I try to be happy, I make everybody run.
I'm Dan Frechette. I'm a singer-songwriter and entertainer and multi-instrumentalist. As time went on, as a kid, I was more into listening to records. I used to have a Fisher-Price record player, folks. It was amazing. 33, 45. When I was a little kid, I'd put it on 45 because it'd sing in tune with my little kid voice. And I just spent all my time listening to Beatle records and singing along. And I was like really, really like immersed. Every time I'd be home from school, it's all I did. And I used to grab a tennis racket in the basement and pretend to play it like this, like a guitar. And this was like all my childhood. And then eventually when I was 12, I started playing guitar because I was so bored. I was like growing up in a little town called Pinawa, and I was so bored I didn't have any friends. And then I started realizing that music was a really great place to go. Take life one step at a time. Go ahead, you might. Being philosophical and all that at a young age like that, when everyone else around you is talking about ice cream, is just kind of like an old soul thing. So I just knew I was different. I didn't really sweat it much. I knew in a social world, I was probably I'd lost a lot of people, or like I don't know. I think more folks were able to find their friends easier, but I was going to be challenged. And so most people I was friends with were older, so it seemed like the people who I connected with the most were older than me because they had already gone through all that stuff, like who's popular, what do they think, and all that. It was a really interesting time growing up because in 1994, 92, 93, around there, that's when I was in grade 10, 11, 12, I started just going, you know what? I'm all right. I'm just because I'm writing these songs, and I just felt like it was more important to go even further into that, instead of trying to fit in or trying to be friends with all these people where they would. I'm gonna travel to the end of the world, where everyone feels the same. When I'm leaving, please don't call my dad, Jules Frechette, my mom, Agnes Frechette, both gone now. Both wonderful. They were the kind of people that I think any creative person would want as parents because my mom was creative herself. My dad was more pragmatic, and he was also very one of these guys that was he always believed in doing the right thing, and so he had a really strong moral compass as well and all that, so, and a lot of pride in the family. So he was super proud of me once I started having some success early on. And my mom was also someone that, like, she paved the highway for me to be a creative, because there's many times where you'd hear a story about a kid growing up and the parents would be like, you should get a real job or whatever. In fact, they let me move back with them a few times over the years. I had a couple girlfriends break up and it didn't work out well, and I was down, and their mom's all like, oh, come on back. Like, they couldn't wait for me to move home, and they had me back there, and I was so blessed. The best housemates I ever had in my life. Like my mom and I remember we used to sit at that table right there, and she'd be doing quilts, and I'd be sitting there writing songs and trying to make her laugh with the lyrics.
Wow.
And I'd know if I wrote a lyric that made my mom smile or laugh, it was a keeper.
Wow.
And that's how I knew my keepers. And my mom was inspired by me playing for her, and she really liked my music right till her dying day. And there's a song called Hold On that I wrote it all about her. I wrote another one. There's one called I Wish I Had My Mama Back, because she had dementia. And I remember I'm holed up down in California in my shed, and I'm looking around in my shed, and I've got all these expensive instruments that I've bought because I've been busting my butt as a musician there, and I've bought all these instruments, and I'm going, the lyric went like, I got a Martin 0018, and I got a Gibson guitar, and all that, but I'd rather have my mama back. And that was the lyric.
I graduated in Pinawa, which is a town just east of Winnipeg, and I was very proud to graduate.
I
with
wound
my
up being
28 fellow classmates.
moved to Toronto when I was like 17 or 18 because I had a publishing deal with EMI Publishing for my songs. And then I wound up there. And instead of going in playing all the most hoity-toity clubs and being all like, you know, smoothing over all the executives and swanky clubs, I was spending my time at open mic nights. And that's what I loved in Toronto. There's a place called Fat Albert's where they have some old beat up piano in the corner. And they've got like all these people showing up that are hippies and like miscreants and like people on the edges of society, people with mental problems, people who have like, you know, like they're creatives, like they're really creative. They're tuned into their creativity. And they were a lot like me, where I was looking at them going, these people are free.
Everybody wants to be free, but somebody always has to wait. But this time, could you let me be free? It gets lonely down here sitting in the shade. I'm living in a dream, and maybe
Since then, I've studied a lot of other folks in the music that have become well known. And a lot of folks that I relate to the most would be like folks like Captain Beefheart or Link Ray, or just, you know, people who are like Willie Nelson is actually an outlaw who became embraced by society because he sounds like Texas and he embodies the American spirit. But yet, for a long time, he was a little bit of an outcast, you know. And so people who are outcasts, I think they're more interesting. Like, it's wild, but even some of the most famous people that we all embrace now, like Bob Dylan and you know, even Neil Young and folks like that, they weren't always the most popular person. They were on the sidelines, you know, and they were out there and they had their vision.
life without a home would be about a dead road. I pulled out my heart and I couldn't even blow. And I know you seem like
It was
a dancing
insane.
sun
It was like the
king.
biggest shock, and I don't think I ever got over it. I think I'm still traumatized by it because I went from like squirrels and deer. There's more mosquitoes than blood cells in Pinawa, by the way, and there's more deer than people. And I went from that to like a total bustling city where there was a lot of people who I noticed, if you're talking to them in a club, they would make eye contact with you and meet you. But within maybe not even 2 minutes of conversation, they ask, what do you do? Right? And what do you do? What do you do for a living? And I'd be like, I'm a musician, I'm a singer-songwriter. Then you'd see them looking around the room and seeing who they could go and beat off and talk to instead. So they just wanted to like get rid of you the second that they found out you were a musician, or just saw you weren't like an executive, you weren't like in tech, you weren't big, you weren't someone that could help them or something. In Toronto, I noticed that, and I have charisma, but I think I drew people to me, and they saw that the charisma was not going to help them. So then I started thinking, okay, I don't ever want to ask anyone what they do for a living. I don't. I try. That's what I mean by this trauma. It just stayed with me. It made me think like I don't ever want to look at someone differently because I found out what they do. Like I don't even want to.
Take time, it's a stepping stone. On the way
my
to
Bandcamp, which is an
glory
amazing
home.
place, I can keep on uploading tons and
world
tons of
grows
music.
up.
It's crazy how much I can put up there. I've put up 133 albums so far up there. I think I tell the story about how when I moved to California, because I was going to go there to be with Laurel, and it was like I had 9 months where I had nothing to do because I was waiting for my green card. And then what happened during the 9 months is I'd taken photos of every song I'd ever written. So what I did was I wound up recording them all, and with a camcorder, kind of like this, you know, and I was playing them through, and they're on my YouTube channel, and they're all privated, but it's like this thing called the Dan Frechette Songbook from 1990 to present, and it's every song I ever wrote, and it's just to show myself in case I ever get old and I can't remember how it went, how did I play it, you know? And so with that, I wound up having this huge amount of songs that I'd rediscovered, 1,650 or something songs. So like I wrote these songs, and then I was going, oh yeah, that one. Oh yeah, I forgot about that one. And then what I did is I went, okay, as soon as I got my studio up and running, I'm recording these. So then I went through, I think a few years ago, I was releasing like something like an album every 2 weeks. I think in 2021, during the pandemic, because the pandemic all anyone could do was listen to music. So people were buying my music a lot. I was getting a lot of sales. And I remember I was going, okay, well, I'm going to make a new album every few weeks. And I was in the studio constantly. But what happened is I started running out of songs, and now I've caught up to my past, because the only songs left to record now are embarrassingly terrible songs that are no good from when I was a kid forcing them. So now what I do is I'm just getting into the habit of getting back into writing again, because I was too busy recording to write.
It's a song called Once Upon a Time.
There's an interesting weird flow. If you go out and you buy yourself a drum set, and you got to learn the rudiments, you know, like the basic boom, boom, like that. But then from there, you start branching out once you're comfortable. And same with bass. Bass is fun. I play piano a little too. I just don't have a keyboard, but on the list, it's all that stuff. Like a lot of it's acoustic instruments. Like I really love bluegrass. So like bluegrass got me into playing mandolin, and bluegrass got me into playing dobro, which is like an instrument you put on your lap, and it's got the strings really high so that you play with a slide. And then I play banjo, because actually my grandpa played banjo, and my grandpa was an old time banjo picker. So there's like, that's probably in my blood. And then all these other instruments, the other ones would be more for rock and roll, like electric guitar and bass and drums and all that, because I like to play rock and roll. And then, just different styles. The funny thing is a lot of songs can be done in different styles. They don't have to stay the way they were. And so a lot of my fun sometimes is just to mess with something, turn a Bruce Springsteen song into a waltz. I like learning from watching others. I like learning from feeling the music. Like to me, feeling music is more important than sitting around with a bunch of books and reading it like it's science or like it's math. Because math and science are beautiful, but then there's something about the heart and soul and the spirit of music. I mean, what we're all trying to do here is uplift each other. So I find John Lee Hooker is a good example of somebody who get boggled down with like the science and the math of it. He just boogied, man. It's like John Lee Hooker going, hey, and then like that's getting the whole room up and jumping, right? Everyone's into it. That's music, right? So.